Okay, so have you ever felt like success is this giant puzzle you just can't figure out?
I think we've all been there.
Well, today we're going to dive into a story that
Mm.
might help us put the pieces together a bit.
Hmm.
We're looking at Nabeel Hussain.
Right.
He's a 24-year-old
Wow.
millionaire entrepreneur in India.
Yeah.
And we've got articles, background info, like the whole 9 yards.
That's impressive. 24 and already a millionaire.
Right. But here's the thing.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
not your typical, like, born with the silver spoon kind of story.
Yeah.
This guy was hustling even back in college.
Oh, really?
But now, even though he's clearly successful, he's hit a major roadblock.
What happened?
The authorities have frozen his accounts, like it came out of nowhere.
Seriously. That's wild. It really highlights those ups and downs of entrepreneurship, especially in a market like India. It's booming, but it can be so unpredictable.
Exactly. So let's rewind to the beginning. We've got college-age Nabeel selling snacks.
Okay.
Then at 17, boom, he launches a travel company.
Wow.
And it wasn't just about, like, making some extra cash. It seems like he was already spotting needs and just taking action.
Right. That's what we're talking about. That's the entrepreneurial mindset. It's more than just earning. It's initiative. It's seeing those gaps and going for it. Those are the traits that you see in people who really make it later on.
And then he makes this jump that just seems out of left field, you know. From travel, he goes to e-commerce
Hmm.
and then dives headfirst into finance, Forex, even crypto. At first, you're like, wait, what's the connection?
Well, it might not even be about the specific industry, right? It could be this evolving understanding of markets in general.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Think about it. Travel, that's logistics, anticipating what people want. E-commerce, digital marketplaces. And then finance, that's all about risk and reward.
I never thought about it that way. So maybe he was transferring skills, picking up new tools along the way.
Yeah, like subconsciously building this toolkit.
Oh, and one source even mentions that he's a director at Falcon Biz.
Interesting. Well, being a director means leadership, responsibility, being part of something bigger, so it's not nothing.
Yeah, but is it a sign of credibility, or is it just a small part of a much larger story?
Right. It's just one piece. We really need to look at the whole picture, how all these ventures connect to understand what's going on.
And that brings us to what Nabeel himself calls his matrix moment.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Imagine this. You've built multiple successful businesses, you followed all the rules, and then bam, your accounts are frozen.
Oh, wow.
He says he submitted everything they'd asked for, but his capital is completely locked up.
Oh, man, that's every entrepreneur's worst nightmare, right? You think they're winning, and then these external forces come in and just totally disrupt everything.
It makes you think about the regulatory landscape, the bureaucracy. Is the cost of doing business more than just the money?
Right, exactly. It makes you wonder.
It's almost a cautionary tale and a thriller all rolled into one. But here's the thing that really gets me. Even while he's dealing with this crazy situation, Nabeel's out there offering free training and mentorship.
Seriously,
That's interesting.
especially in finance. So is this some genius strategy, like a long game? Or is it genuine altruism? Or maybe a bit of both?
I mean, you're probably right. It could be a mix. Sharing knowledge like that, it builds community, a reputation.
Yeah.
Could even attract future collaborators, right?
Sure.
But it also shows that he really believes in helping others.
Yeah.
That kind of attitude resonates with aspiring entrepreneurs.
Okay, so while he's fighting his own battle, he's also building this army of financial whizzes. That's kind of badass when you think about it.
It is pretty impressive.
Speaking of learning, let's look at the principles that Nabeel stresses. And I'm not just talking generic business tips here. We're talking vision, resilience, adaptability, the whole package.
And what's really cool is that they're not just words for him. They're woven into his story. Like, take adaptability, for example.
Yeah, he went from travel to e-commerce to finance, each time diving into a completely new world.
He's like, don't get stuck doing the same thing. Be ready to switch gears when things change.
Totally. And that connects right back to what we were talking about with calculated risks, Forex and crypto. Those weren't just random decisions. He weighed the potential upside with the risks that come with those markets.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to handle those kinds of markets without constantly learning, would he?
Absolutely not. To survive in those spaces, you got to be constantly absorbing new info, getting better all the time. He really shows how in the entrepreneurial world, you never stop learning.
It really is like a muscle you have to keep working. Okay, so we're getting a better picture of Nabeel, right? Adaptable, willing to take risks, always learning. But here's where things get really interesting.
Right, lay it on me.
We know he values resilience,
Yeah.
But how's that going to work when everything just crashes down around him? This account freeze isn't just about money. It's like an attack on everything he's built.
Right, exactly. This is where those principles are really put to the test. It's one thing to talk about resilience when things are good, but it's a whole other story when you're hit with something like this.
So how does he move forward? Does this break him? Or does he use it as fuel to come back even stronger? That's what we're going to explore now.
Wow, I'm hooked. What's really striking to me is how Nabeel just seems to thrive on uncertainty.
Mm.
I mean, most people would be completely frozen by this account freeze thing.
Oh.
But he's out there teaching, empowering others. It's like he's turning a negative into a positive.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, okay, you want to try to shut me down? Fine. But while I'm dealing with that, I'm going to build something even bigger. But let's be honest, there's got to be some strategy here too.
Yeah, definitely. Think about it. By offering all this free training, he's making himself a leader, building trust with people, getting a following. It's smart marketing for sure.
So he's not just surviving, he's finding a way to make this work for him.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that abundance mentality thing we were talking about before. You know, the idea that there is enough success for everyone, that helping others is better than just competing all the time.
I see what you mean.
By sharing all his knowledge, Nabeel's building more than just customers. He's building a network.
Yeah, most entrepreneurs are so worried about protecting their secrets, their advantage. Nabeel's doing the opposite.
It's a total shift in how people usually think. And from what I've seen, it's working. His mentorship programs are getting a ton of attention, and not just in India either.
Wow, so he's building a global community while he's fighting this very local battle. He's thinking on another level.
He's playing chess, not checkers. And that kind of thinking is what we've seen this whole time. Remember how he went from travel to e-commerce to finance? He wasn't just jumping around randomly. He was recognizing those patterns, understanding how these different markets all work.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture now, but I'm still hung up on this account freeze thing. It just seems so unfair. Like, what message does that send to other young entrepreneurs in India?
Right. It's the question everyone's asking. And it's a question a lot of entrepreneurs in up-and-coming markets have to face. Regulations can change, things can be unpredictable, and even when you're doing everything by the book, the rules can suddenly change.
Yeah, it's a harsh reality, but it also shows how resilient Nabeel is. He's not letting it stop him.
Yeah.
He's using it to push himself, to keep going, to come up with new ideas, and to challenge the system.
Absolutely. And that refusal to be silenced, that's what makes his story so interesting. Even when it seems like the system is rigged against you, you still have options.
So what can we as listeners take away from all of this?
Well, I think there are a few key things here. First, never underestimate how important it is to adapt. Nabeel's ability to change directions, to take skills from one area and use them somewhere else, that's incredibly valuable.
He's really good at connecting those dots, finding opportunity when others just see chaos.
Exactly. And second, always be learning. In a world that changes so quickly, what you know is your biggest advantage. Whether it's learning a new skill or figuring out a difficult market, you gotta be a student forever.
And the third thing,
That abundance mentality. Share what you know, build a community, and remember, there's enough success out there for everyone.
you hit the nail on the head. Now remember those principles we talked about before.
Yeah.
Vision, resilience, adaptability, calculated risk-taking, constant learning.
Yeah.
We're seeing all of them play out in real life with Nabeel. It's not just theory, it's his actual experience.
That's a good point.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Nabeel's early hustle, that crazy matrix moment, his mentorship program, and what we can learn from it all.
It's been quite a journey.
But what's next for Nabeel? How's he going to rebuild and move forward from all this?
Well, the sources we have make it clear he's not giving up. He's said publicly that people are pressuring him to just get a regular job, but he won't let go of his entrepreneurial dream.
That's amazing. He's really choosing to fight for what he believes in, even when things are stacked against him.
And that courage, that unwavering belief, that's what sets him apart. True success isn't about what other people think. It's about staying true to yourself even when it's hard or different.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It really challenges what we think it means to be successful, to be an entrepreneur.
it definitely does. It reminds us that this journey isn't always a straight line. It's not always glamorous, and it's definitely not easy. But for those who can handle the challenge, the rewards can be amazing, both personally and professionally.
I'm curious though about Falcony Biz. We haven't really dug into that part of his story much. Is there anything more we can learn from that?
You know, that's a great point. We know he's a director there, but the sources don't give us much more than that. Maybe that experience, being part of a bigger organization, shaped how he leads or how he sees business structure.
Or maybe it was like a stepping stone to learn and meet people before going out on his own.
That could be it. It'd be really interesting to learn more about what he did at Falcony Biz and how it all fits in.
Like a missing puzzle piece. But even without it, we've learned so much.
For sure. We've seen his early hustle, that unusual career path, his matrix moment, and the principles he lives by. And through it all, we've seen amazing resilience, adaptability, and this desire to help others.
It's inspiring. It really makes you want to rethink what success means, how you approach challenges.
Yeah, it reminds us that success isn't a finish line, it's the whole journey. And it's a journey you want to take with an open mind, a willingness to learn, and a passion for what you're doing.
I'm so curious to know what happens next for Nabeel. Does he get through this account freeze? Does he start new companies? Does he become a big name in finance? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
I have a feeling we haven't heard the last of him. And no matter what happens, I think he'll keep inspiring us and challenging our ideas with that entrepreneurial spirit of his and that unwavering commitment to his vision.
Before we wrap up, there's something that's been on my mind throughout this whole deep dive.
Okay, what is it?
Nabeel's story is incredible. But is there a danger in making his struggles seem too romantic?
Oh, that's an excellent point. We can't overlook that. It's easy to get caught up in this idea of the underdog entrepreneur fighting the system.
Right.
But we have to remember that every story has more to it than we see on the surface.
So while we can admire his strength and determination, we shouldn't jump to conclusions or offer easy solutions.
Exactly. This isn't about worshiping a hero. It's about taking valuable lessons and thinking about how they apply to our own lives and situations.
Well said. Nabeel's story shows us that entrepreneurship is a tough and complicated path, but it can also be a path that leads to incredible fulfillment.
It's a journey anyone who wants to create something new, make a real difference, should think about.
So as we end this deep dive into Nabeel Hussein's journey, I'm left feeling inspired, but also aware of the need to be careful. His story is amazing, but it's not some perfect guide to follow blindly.
I agree. It's inspiring, it makes you think, and it reminds us that this journey is very personal, shaped by our own situations, values, and goals.
I'm curious, though, what do you think will be the most important thing for Nabeel's success in the long run? His resilience, his ability to adapt, his willingness to take risks.
That's a really good question. He definitely has all those qualities. But if I had to pick just one, I'd say it's his ability to keep a clear vision even when everything's going crazy around him.
To stay focused on his why, even when he doesn't know how.
Exactly. That unshakable belief in what he's doing and the impact he wants to have, that'll be what guides him through all the tough times ahead.
Like that inner compass we talked about, keeping him on course even when the world's trying to throw him off.
Precisely. And that's something we can all work on, whether we're entrepreneurs or just trying to figure out our own lives.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Nabeel Hussein's entrepreneurial journey, I feel a sense of awe at what he's done, but also a sense of what's possible.
Me too. His story shows how powerful the human spirit can be in overcoming obstacles and doing what seems impossible.
I want to know what our listeners think. What stood out to you? Did Nabeel's approach to risk inspire you, or maybe his commitment to community?
I'd love to hear their thoughts. And maybe they have some questions of their own. After all, the best deep dives don't just give you answers, they spark new questions and make you want to explore more.
Yeah, it's like his story is this big open question. He's showing us what could be, but it's up to you to decide what it means for us.
That's what makes this whole thing so interesting, right? It's not just a biography. It's like a challenge to think differently about what success is, how to deal with problems, and how important community can be.
Okay, so last thoughts. If Nabeel could give you one piece of advice based on what he's learned, what do you think it would be?
Oh man, that's tough. But knowing Nabeel, I bet he'd say something like, don't be afraid to be different. The best paths are usually the ones nobody else is taking.
That's so true. He's not following the usual rules. He's making his own.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. He hits bumps in the road, but he keeps moving forward.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that idea of resilience we keep talking about. It's not about never getting knocked down. It's about getting back up even stronger.
So it's not just about having the vision or taking risks. It's about having the guts to keep going when things get rough.
You got it. And that's where that whole community thing comes in. Having people around you who support you, who believe in what you're doing, can make all the difference when you face those tough times.
It's like Nabeel's building this network of support, both by mentoring people and just by being so open about his own struggles.
For sure. He's not afraid to show that he's human, which you don't always see, especially from successful young founders.
It's refreshing, right? It makes him seem more real.
And I think that's what makes this story so impactful. It reminds us that success isn't just about money or fame. It's about the journey, the connections we make, and how we make a difference in the world.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Nabeel Hussain's entrepreneurial journey, I'm feeling inspired. But I've also got a lot to think about.
Me too. His story shows that entrepreneurship is constantly changing, and there's no single recipe for success.
But by looking at people who've dared to break the rules, like Nabeel, we can pick up some valuable lessons and use them on our own paths.
Definitely. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive into your entrepreneurial journey.
Now that would be something. But seriously, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. I hope it sparks some new ideas and ways of looking at what's possible.
It's been great talking about this. And remember, the best journeys are the ones we make ourselves. So get out there, explore, experiment, and don't be afraid to do things differently.
That's a wrap on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing those boundaries of what you thought was possible.